You're tuned in to the Restaurant RockStars Podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Welcome back, guys, to the Restaurant RockStars Podcast. As always, thank you for tuning in. In this week's episode, what if you could employ sports technology like the NFL, the videos that they constantly shoot of their players to give the player, an accurate picture of how they're performing and what the performance is. Even in games against other teams, they can see how they stack up against the competition. Well, I'm excited because today I'm speaking with Mr. Ken Bianchi from a company called Hoptix 720. And they've developed a unique and powerful video analytics training tool just for restaurants. First, it gives you an accurate picture of guest traffic counts. It'll also give you an accurate picture of greeting times by the host, or how long it takes a server to approach a table after that table's been seated, how long it takes for the drink order to arrive, and so on and so forth. By training your staff and watching and monitoring the performance through the video, you can obviously and accurately increase the performance in your restaurant, which gives your customers a better overall experience. What does that mean? They're going to come back more again and again. Your sales and profits will go up. So stay tuned to the episode. I'm excited to bring it to you. Scheduling staff is like being an air traffic controller. Sticky notes, emails, texts. There's so many requests. Your employees say, I didn't see the schedule. I can't work Friday. I need to switch with Sally. I asked for time off. Well, it's time to land those planes. With Hot Schedules, all requests go into one system to build the perfect schedule. Staff can get their schedules 7 ways, including a powerful app. They can easily communicate with managers, pick up or change a shift in just a few clicks. There's even a template for recurring schedules based on sales, traffic, budgets, you name it. See why Hot Schedules is the #1 staff scheduling app on iTunes and why over 170,000 restaurants in over 60 countries are using Hot Schedules to save time, manage costs, and grow their business. Go to hotschedules.com/free-trial for a free demo. I'll repeat that, hotschedules.com/free-trial for the free demo. Check it out. Welcome back, everyone, to the Restaurant RockStars Podcast, engaging topics that help restaurants build their brands, rock their profits, and deliver amazing guest service experiences. Today's guest will do all three. I'm speaking with Mr. Ken Bianchi. He is the founder and CEO of a company called Hoptix 720. It is a cool video analytic tool that delivers great guest experiences, helps you train your staff, and gives restaurants data and behavioral trends and all this sort of stuff. So I'm really intrigued with this concept, and I can't wait to get into it. Ken, thanks, and welcome to the show.
Oh, you're the best, Roger. Thank you. Looking forward to it, especially with an industry expert to introduce something new and exciting to this industry. Always good to hear what others think about Hoptix.
Well, I'm continually amazed at how technology literally leaps forward every single day, and so much in the hospitality space. I mean, there's technology for everything, but this is really the first time I've heard of something as unique as what you're offering. Before we get into that, Ken, I got to ask every guest, what's your backstory? How did you get into the hospitality industry? How did you come up with this idea for Hoptix 720? Give us the whole background.
Sure, I'd love to. I mean, listen, how many people have actually had a job in the hospitality industry at one point in their career? But, the summer of 1999, and I was working in St. Louis for one of the largest staffing companies in the world. And I remember I was at one of my largest customers, and as I was walking, leaving, I had 2 of their employees come and reach me, and they said, "Hey, listen, Ken, do you think that you could actually help us to find a job?" And I'm like, well, that's a conflict of interest because this is one of my customers. But what's happening? And that was the first time, Roger, that I ever heard, I was 21 years old, 22 years old at the time. First time I ever heard somebody wanting to leave a job because they weren't appreciated. They weren't praised. They weren't recognized. And so fast forward a few years, I'm in San Francisco living, and I get into the security industry. And I end up opening a security company called Omni Security. And I've been doing that for the last 15 years. And through that, we started out as a residential company and we did extremely well. I was partnered with a number of sister companies, one of the top 5 ADT dealers in the nation. And, we had enough capital out there that we started to get into video surveillance more and more. And video surveillance more focused on a proactive approach to really start to engage employees. And we focused on restaurants. And so for 15 years, I had been working with restaurants, installing video surveillance and understanding, triggers, and when something happens, something else happens. And we get data from that. And so I started to hear more and more of restaurant owners wanting to battle this issue of employee productivity. Well, we sold the most sophisticated systems. They were 4 times as much as what some people are paying for video surveillance. But what we found was that no one ever took the time to really use them in the way that they should. And the problem continued. And I kept on hearing this issue over and over again of employees wanting to leave because they weren't praised, they weren't recognized, and no one was doing anything. And so, we implemented systems of entrepreneur operating systems of accountability, and we saw huge increases to our EBITDA and employee productivity. I'm in this master's program at MIT through the Entrepreneurs Organization. I remember listening to Jeff Hoffman. This was about 3 years ago, and he talked about hearing travelers being upset about standing in lines so much that he actually created the airport kiosk, which changed the way that we travel today, right? And it made me realize, think big and make an impact. And from there, I said, what if we changed the way that this was actually occurring? And instead of having restaurants have to try to go in where they're already struggling to find time to do anything, why don't we do this for them and deliver the information that they've always wanted and really battle where we're at a crisis, employee productivity or employee engagement, I should say, and turnover. And that's how Hoptix was created. Hoptix is the optics or the behavior inside of the hospitality industry. And not only do we want to know that 360 degrees from the inside, but when we look at it, we need to know from the outside how everything is happening. And right now we just don't. And it's been crushing our industry.
Well, you're speaking my language on so many levels, Ken, because one, I'm a passionate believer in recognizing and rewarding employees and team building. And it can be as simple as an internal program, but now we're talking about using technology to do that, which really blows me away because, there's an app for everything right now. There's so much different software out there. But now we've got a video tool that does so many different things. I mean, where should we begin? Should we talk about the staff training piece? Should we talk about how, you're retaining your customers, you're increasing sales and profits with this tool? It also can be part of the surveillance against theft and waste and spoilage and employee errors or dishonesty. I mean, it goes in all of those directions.
It's so much. And I'll tell you, it's been the difficult part as we've been growing is to how to boil this down and peel back all the layers of the onion to say like what it truly does, because it does so much on so many fronts. I think your listeners are very well educated in this, and some things that we want to talk about is just like the theory behind this, right? And so when we think of what's going on right now in the industry, we know that restaurant owners know their fixed and their variable costs, right? That's what they're making their decisions on. And our costs continue to rise. In some states, like New York, I mean, minimum wage is so high right now. I mean, the margins that we have in this industry to make money are so, right. So, we continue to try to cut costs and find ways to increase profits, but truly, what we don't know right now is all the money that we're leaving on the table, and all the money that we're leaving on the table from the biggest area to make money that's never been wrangled. It's like this wild horse that's never been ridden, right? And so it's the employee engagement and the customer experience, right? You just said it, Roger. The customer experience is huge, but who creates the customer experience? It's the employees. And so we looked at this and we said, God, for decades, employee engagement, we know that when you can, the greatest companies out there that have engaged employees, you had engaged employees, right? And so, really those that need our system the most are those franchises, those chains that have multiple locations that really focus on service standards, brand promises being delivered from one city to the next city, wherever. Okay. And they're all over the place. I'm sorry, what'd you say? Consistency. Right. Consistency is what brings us back. So, engaged employees equals happier employees equals happier customers, and they come back, and that's what really drives our profitability.
Right.
And so, that's the theory. Now, how do we do that? And what's been happening? So I asked you as an industry professional, what is it that employees of today, right? Gen Z and millennials, what are they looking for?
Engagement, fun, interaction, a way to gauge performance and get immediate feedback in real time, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, they're looking for all of that. You just said feedback. So they're used to getting feedback, right? They're on social media and every place else. And we haven't evolved, it seems, to provide this feedback for them. We give it to them every now and then, but they also are very used to using video to learn, right? I mean, it's a 400% increase in retention and comprehension when you use video and visuals. Now imagine being able to see yourself and how you're doing. We've essentially taken the principles that the whole sporting world and even, any performer has been using for decades. When you want to have a high efficiency team, or you yourself want to reach high efficiency levels, I mean, let's face it, you climb, you mountain bike. Anytime, that you wanted to get better, you might have had a mentor or a coach that looked at you and said, hey, Roger, maybe you should try this. And then when you actually could see yourself doing it, how much better and easier was it for you to grasp that concept?
Oh, immediately. I mean, even my daughter, she's on a ski team up at a major ski resort, and they use video cameras all the time to monitor the kids' performance, and it's game-changing technology that really helps the kids improve. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So, why are we not using it
in restaurants?
where we're
yeah.
Honestly, like these employees are playing a game every single day. And the issue is that we don't know what the score is, because we've never had the technology to keep track, right? I mean, it's, Greg Creed from Yum Brands, Restaurant Person of the Year at the Restaurant Leadership Conference, said it. He's like, if we're all working just as hard, the brands that are going to succeed are the ones that are going to capitalize on the experience. And so what we're looking at right now, it's like, well, how are we truly able to capitalize on that experience? And it doesn't just mean the experience of the customers, it's really the employees. And so what we're looking at doing is creating an impact with Hoptix, an impact in the employees' lives, which can in turn create an impact in the customers' lives. So that's kind of the theory behind everything, that we're doing over here.
All right, so let's start talking about Hoptix 720 as a training tools for staff to give them that feedback on how they're performing and how that impacts the customer's experience in terms of wait times and how long it takes for, someone to be greeted at the bar or to be greeted by a server at the table after the host has seated them. I mean, all these things are critical impressions, and it's all about positive impressions from start to finish that are lasting impressions in the restaurant. And this gives you a tool to do that?
It does. I've seen so many manuals from restaurants, and they have the service standards, right? And the service standards are, at this point right now, we just hate to wait, don't we? I mean, it's like, I can't stand it. And we talk about it. It was one of your other guests, and I forget who it was. And they were talking. It's like, one of the more recent episodes where they talked about, just 10 seconds is the difference between exceptional and good. And, here's an interesting fact. You probably know this, but 96% of our customers that have a bad experience never let us know about it.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
never complain.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is they lower their frequency or they just don't come back. Now in quick service, we know fast food, they're going to come back, but they may go to another location or they may, of that brand, or they may go to another brand, get sick of that, and then go back to that one. So to get back to your question, when we look at what we're actually analyzing over here is we have focused on essentially 6 key metrics, whether it's quick service or full service, on what brings customers back. As you talked about, it's like, how quickly are you greeted right when you walk in? How about when you sit down, how quickly are you greeted? How about when you approach a bar, how quickly are you acknowledged? How quickly are your first drinks coming out? How quickly are the plates coming off the pass, right? Are they served as they should be served? How quickly are tables being turned over? We're actually listening as well. And so with quick service, we've been listening to see how we're actually fulfilling our service standards. So at a couple of our quick service customers, we're listening to say, is there a warm greeting? Is there suggestive selling? Is there repeating an order back? Is there a simple thank you and like directions? Hi, please pull forward. Hey, and are we pleasant sounding throughout? We've got a customer right now, global chain. And when we listen to them at the drive-thru for the first time, so what we do is first we install a very sophisticated video system that we're used to installing over these last 15 years. Okay. The system is able to accept this information, very easy to retrieve this information so that we can compile these analytics. And so what we did is we let it sit for about 3 or 4 weeks so that we get people in their natural state. Because anytime you put video in or a new system, everyone's on their best behavior. So we get them in their natural state. Now, Roger, here's a nice question. At the drive-thru, the 5 things that I just talked about, how often do you think that they were getting all 5 of those when a customer approached?
In terms of a percentage, perhaps?
Yeah, percentage. Out of 100 times, how many?
Yeah. So
this was at the drive-thru. Did they do a warm greeting, suggestive selling, repeating the order back, thank you, and just sounding pleasant?
I would say, well, in my experience, I'd say it's less than 10%.
That's great. Fantastic. It was 7%. 7% of the time. Okay. So, we're able to look at that and then just imagine this. This is the data that we've never had. To go off just a little bit on some of the, I'll get back into it. Maybe some of the barriers to success that we had before. We've had mystery shoppers. We've had, these SMG reports. We've had surveys. And a lot of times, those are just little spot checks. Okay. Very small sample sizes. And they're subjective at times. And so when we can, and the other thing is they tell you what happened, but not necessarily who or why or how. So imagine being able to go back and see and listen to all of that. And imagine being able to compile that data where now we say, hey, listen, we only had 7% of the time. These are all of these events that occurred. And how cool would it be for a manager not to have to think about this, but we deliver reports to them where we tell them exactly where to go. They pull up the video and now they can go in and they can see what happened.
And you play it back to your staff as well, right? I mean, this is part of the training.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, and you don't even have to say what happened. So what we're doing is we're looking at what the most important areas are. We're creating a language behind that. We're setting expectations, which is one of the things that our new workforce is looking for. What do I need to do? This is what you need to do in this amount of time. Let's make things easier. This is building happiness. So now they were able to go in and see who was really doing well. Because here's one thing that Hoptix does that shines over anybody. half of the reports that we provide, half of the events are all praiseworthy. They have fallen within the goal time. So when somebody achieved 100%, how are you going to get people engaged? You need to praise them. Praising has been one of the first things that's been thrown out the window because we have no time, right? Because labor starts to continue to drive up the cost. And our managers are worked so hard that the praise runs out. So we make it easy for the managers to praise every single day. It takes less than 15 minutes for them to go in. We've had great results with 10 to 15 minutes from our managers going in and doing 2 to 3 praise, a mixture of praise and coaching or training through the day. And that's it. So much that within 90 days, we went from 7% to 47%. We're getting 100%. Huge results to the point that the employees actually are looking forward to getting this information, right, from the managers. The managers are extremely ecstatic about it because their job is made that much easier, okay? And now they're seeing like increases in the bottom line. They're also, the cost of goods sold is going down because they're repeating the order back more. The average transaction price is going up because they're suggested selling more. It's like, it's this whole ripple effect. But the biggest thing that we're excited about is that employees are happier.
And that lowers turnover, increases longevity, builds a whole company culture that everyone gets behind this thing, and it's a top-down thing.
How much exactly, Roger? I mean, you just said it on your last podcast. And the numbers are all over the place. But what's the cost of turnover for an employee?
Yeah. Okay, so this is crazy, and this is backed by statistics, but they say the average tenure of a new restaurant employee is about 4 months. And every time you hire that person and get them up to speed in their job, and then you lose or fire that person and have to replace that person, it costs the restaurant anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 every time that happens. Staggering,
yeah,
right?
And that's a frontline employee.
Yeah, right.
So Cornell University did a search. They actually bumped it up to $5,400, right? And they put a $13,500 price tag on managers.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is money that is just it's flying out there. So we look at that, and that's where the big profitability comes in. So we're looking at a few areas that we want to tackle. Happiness is one of them. How do we increase happiness? Enhancing the human experience is something that lies at my core. It's actually, one of our core values, being immersed in the human experience. How do we actually have a better go at this life while we're walking on this earth? And so, a lot of our employees, this is their first job in their life, first time. And so their first experience to the working world is 4 months, and they're out the door. Heck, in quick service, you want to know what? I just read it was less than 2 months, the average tenure. So how is that helping our communities? How is that helping our new workforce that's out there? Here's what I like too. How many restaurant owners have you heard say, like, I just can't find anybody? I just can't find anybody these days.
I hear it every single day. I'm actually on a workforce development committee for our state restaurant association. We're trying to tackle that problem, but every state is having this problem right now. It's crazy.
So Albert Einstein's insanity quote, right? Doing the same thing over and over
again, getting the same result. Yeah.
What have we changed? There's nothing that we've changed. How about this, Roger? You own a restaurant and you tell them, new candidate comes in, new hire candidate, applicant, and you go through everything. You're just like every other restaurant. You say, hey, you know what else? You know what else we do? We actually have a system that's designed to make you reach higher performance levels, just like athletes and performers. Now, we know there's a chance you may not stay in this industry, but because of this system and because of what we're going to do, we're going to teach you accountability and how to reach higher levels. And we're actually going to be able to prove that you're reaching these higher levels, which number one means you're going to make more money faster. But also when you leave, you're going to have an easier job of finding another job because you were trained better. Now, how about that for a differentiator, Roger?
That's huge. I mean, this is a life skills industry where you don't need any formal education to take it all the way to the top. And I got so many stories of the past 2 decades of, my first dishwasher went on to own his own restaurant after working for me for 15 years. I mean, it happens.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
It absolutely happens. So now you've differentiated. We know that, when we go through, and I'll get through, why this works a little bit too later. But, Billy Beane, are you familiar with who Billy Beane is? The manager, ex-manager, ex-player, manager. And now he's in the back office for the Oakland A's. He basically revolutionized baseball with statistics. He took a team, the Oakland A's, with the lowest payroll and made them a contender to beat teams like the Yankees and reach first place. And he did that. And he said this, he was a keynote speaker at the National Restaurant Show 2 years ago. And he said, the way to a winning team is through statistics. So we're playing this game. And what he meant by that, by the way, is how do we get people on the team that are going to help us win? So when we go in, we're just throwing these bodies. And I've heard you say it before, like that's not good for the long run when you just throw bodies in. Yeah. So what we're able to do with Hoptix is we're able to find out who are our A players, because now we can actually put a score to them. And it's not to say like, hey, you haven't done this well and you haven't done that well, get out of here. We see that there's an area for improvement. Let's help you do this. Can you see what you're doing versus what should be happening? And it's a much better approach, because what's happened, Roger, is we talk about employee engagement. The real issue at hand is the development of our employees. Your last guest talked about an apprenticeship. Okay. And so we bring these employees in and we train them. And we say, okay, they know what they're doing. But how is the further development occurring inside of the restaurant industry right now?
I am a huge believer in constant daily training and taking the time that you mentioned that just doesn't happen. This is the business of 1,000 details, but the foundational element are the impressions that you leave on your customer through your staff. You're only as good as every customer interaction with a staff person. And if you're not training your staff, then the competitor probably is, and you're going to lose that business. And especially in a viral world with social media, I mean, that's a whole nother piece of this.
That's just so easy. I think it's four employees to one are voluntarily leaving versus being fired, right? And so it's like how do we just keep them happy? And it's really the development portion. And so imagine the managers, how much easier it is when they know, like, hey, we have an area of opportunity that we need to get better at, right? And it's more profound, better than any mystery shop or better than any like SMG report, better than any survey, because we're actually validating it with video. We're like, no, this is truly what's happening. It's not just a report. We're backing it up. And now we say, okay, focus your energy on this and you will get better at it. What gets measured improves, right? The issue that I've seen, one of the issues is like, here we have customer experience as the number one brand differentiator. And yet we've had no way to truly and accurately measure it.
Let me ask you a question,
right?
Ken.
So, yeah.
Is self-evaluation as part of this video training effective? Do we have other team members sort of critique each other's performance? Do we have this round robin interactive experience where we say, okay, this is what happened at the drive-thru, or this is what happened at the bar? What do you see happening here versus what should be happening here? Like, what's the dynamic?
You just hit the nail on the head, right? This is not accusatory. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
So the COO is looking to make sure the operations are in place, right? And now all of a sudden that goes down to your district managers. District manager can go in and say, gosh, you know what? We thought that this should take 30 seconds to clean the table. Well, you know what? Maybe that's not the accurate amount. Here we are putting these service standards in place, yet we've never truly tracked them to see if they're really accurate, right? And are they realistic? So, the teams are getting together. They're understanding what happened, but why it happened. Okay, so that's the beauty of having a very sophisticated video system, which is, as I said, where our roots came from. It's once you see it, now you want to be able to go back almost like virtual reality. So our training, like you can record these backups where now all of a sudden you have backup footage. It has all the cameras. It works just like the camera. And I don't know how much you know about video surveillance, but the majority of systems just back up like an AVI file. So it's really not something you're going to use for a high level training. This is, let's look at it as a team. Let's dissect what happened, and let's see how we can get better. So imagine, another thing that employees want. They want purpose. They want passion. So now I'm asking you, Roger, as one of our team members, what do you think about this? Oh my God. Do you think that
it's empowering
engages?
Is what it is. Yeah, it's empowering.
It's empowering because,
yeah.
Right. It's like, hey, listen, the fact is this happened and this is happening,
yeah.
But it's not their fault. I mean, I'll bring it back to sports. I do it, all the time. I apologize for those listeners that aren't, sport enthusiasts, but it's a very good analogy because anytime you're doing something physical, you can get into, if you're not being coached, you can get into just doing something out of habit, and it can be a bad habit. And until somebody looks at that to say, hey, you know what? I noticed you're doing this. I played baseball, and, baseball is known for people getting into slumps. And so the coaching is constantly like, you're dropping your elbow, you're dropping your hips, you're leaning a little bit. It's just a little tweak. So we have all of these employees who, get thought of as bad employees, but the fact is we've left them out there. We train them, we put them into the game, and we say, you know what, go and be a great player. But the fact is they've never maybe played the game before. They're athletic. We've seen them run, but that doesn't mean that they can play our game, especially at the high level that we want them to play. That's going to bring the profitability in. That's the power of Hoptix, So, we break it down very simply. Hoptix, we have a very sophisticated video system. With that video system, we look at and do performance analysis. And then we compile all of that into a very nice dashboard that has all your statistics where a manager can go in, look at that, and then we produce monthly reports to the managers. We only we focus on 2 speeds of service at a time. Why do we do that? We don't want analysis paralysis, okay? We want to keep our managers happy too. And so now they look at this, and each report has only 50 events. This is out of hundreds and hundreds of events we analyze per month, thousands. But we only give them 50. And if you do the math, that means about 3 coaches and praises per day. And we have seen that has worked wonders. Half of them are praiseworthy, half of them are for training, and that's how we're getting the best results right now.
You mentioned paralysis by analysis. Let's talk about a restaurant that's open 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. How much of the data or video capture actually gets analyzed, or who pinpoints the key learnings for the staff saying, okay, at this particular segment of time, this is what happened, this is what should have been happening, or comparing a negative experience for a customer versus a really positive one that you can compare the two side by side. Like, how does the data get analyzed and then turned into the reporting? Or how much data gets analyzed, I should say?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Where SMGs are about 0.25% to maybe 0.5%, maybe 1% of what's being analyzed right now. Mystery shoppers come in maybe once a month or once a week, maybe, and analyze what's happening. Surveys come in; those are usually from people that like us anyway, and we're kind of bribing them for it as well. And reviews, let's face it, reviews are our fans anyway. And we already talked about the people that have a bad experience that just never take the time to let us know. So what we're doing is we are 4 times the given data at this point, 4 to 5 times. So what we do is we have some artificial intelligence that will pull some of our metrics. Now we have to vet this. Artificial intelligence isn't 100% there these days. Extremely, extremely expensive. And there's so many different factors inside one location to another location that there needs to be a lot of modifications and edits. We are moving more towards that. So what we do is we look at that and then we vet that information through our video system and a team of analysts so that when we produce these reports, they're 100% accurate. I'll give it 99.9%. Nothing's 100%, right? But we're looking at hundreds and hundreds of events for each of these speeds of service that we're focusing on each month. Now, when you ask how we're doing this, I believe in having a large sample size and diversity.
I do as well.
So what we will, so we're looking at, we won't pull more than 3 events per hour or per 60 minutes. And we won't pull more than, maybe 12 or 15 events per day. That's more than enough to understand what's happening during that given day. Because, that's what happens with a mystery shopper, right? I mean, you go in there and you look at one event for that one day, and then we're judging how our experience is based on that one mystery shopper. Now, someone could have a bad day or whatever. But if we're going through and looking at hundreds of events that's backed up by video, the whole industry, Roger, right now, these SMG reports, unbelievable. I mean, thousands and thousands of restaurants have been using this to state whether or not they're providing a great experience. I've got a customer right now. Here's a great story. And this is something we're seeing if we're disproving some of the ways that we actually measure and calculate the experience right now. So we had a customer out there that had, we put Hoptix in, we let it run. And we let it run for 90 days, and we were working with it, and we were working on the audio portion of the drive-through and the front counter, and we saw amazing results. We saw increases in the average spend, increases in the amount of people, because we look at people counting as well. We have AI that looks at guest traffic coming in, so we've actually elevated that whole POS, so we don't look at the average transaction. We look at the average guest spend per customer that's come in, which we might talk about later. But we saw the number of people that were coming in increase. We saw that the average guest spend increase. This in a year, and the bottom line increase after from the prior year. We saw all of this in a year. And this restaurant is kind of weather dependent. In a year in New York where it was it's been terrible weather for this, they still increased, but their SNG scores went down. And so here's this customer looking at this so I have these SMGs. This is saying that we're not delivering good service. And yet all of the numbers that I'm really concerned about are going up, and we're saying that our customer service is getting better. You tell me, which one's more accurate? Ours is backed by audio and video. This one's backed by people who filled a survey out that said, hey, you know what? I just had a bad one. And you know what? It's an eighth. It was an eighth of the data that we had, right? So this is a numbers game. That's the way I look at it. It really all does come down to a numbers game. And as I talked about Billy Bean before, if we can start to see who our best players are, now we can reward them more. And the ones that are our worst players, we can start to build and make better. And if by some chance they can't or they won't do it, we know based on data that they wouldn't do it. And we've given them every shot.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden they can move to another team, right? It's not that they're bad. We just know. So
every business has what I call the A team, the B team, and the C team. And the A's go without saying. You wish you had 10 more of those people. They're business builders. They make friends with their customers. They're reliable. They, emulate best practices. And the B players are the same. They just lack a little polish and a little experience. But if they shadow the A team, then they quickly rise to that level. And the C team are those that just don't adapt to any training. They're there for the wrong reasons. They're just paycheck collectors that, are going to be gone anyway. So here's a way to really transfer those best practices, from the A's to the B's, so that pretty soon everyone is what I call the dream team, and they're all A players. And this sounds like a tool that does just that.
I love the way it's transferring that data from the A to the B. The tough part is too, like the C's, because of how it is today, we let the C's go because we literally just need bodies, and they're causing more customers to leave
Absolutely.
than keeping customers there because we're staffed. I've seen with one of our other customers, casual dining, and they were running into major issues of very slow service. And they had no idea why. Put Hoptix in, and we were able to uncover a couple of the servers actually just were not focused on the customers. And we could see that. We could see how quickly they were getting to the tables. And then they were deep diving a little bit more to say, like, gosh, what's happening over here? And then the other servers were having to come over and help out, which disengaged them considerably. Excuse me. And so through the video, they were able to show these servers that weren't meeting their service standards what was happening. They gave them a chance. They gave them another chance. They gave them another chance. There was two of them. They ended up having them sit on the bench, which basically means, please play for another team.
Absolutely right. Yep.
At the same time they were looking at this, they also uncovered that the bussers could be doing more to help out. And so what that did is that allowed them to become more productive at their job. And they actually didn't even have to hire two more servers. They were now able to use what they had from this video system, where now all of a sudden these existing servers were able to handle another 3 tables each, which meant, and they were, you want to talk about happiness. Number one, they weren't working any harder. They were working smarter. They were making more money. They were now buying cars and houses. This was from the, from the owner. He's like, these guys are so happy, and they brought that negative energy and they got it out of there. And, the nice thing is we want to give everybody a shot. Right now, people are not given a shot to be better because we just say, hey, everybody, we need to pick everything up. Like, everybody needs to get better. Well, if I'm awesome at greeting the host, maybe I should just be acknowledged. Like, hey, you know what, Roger, you're amazing at this. Why don't you help everybody know why you're doing this and how you're doing this, right? Speak to the people that need to be spoken to. And then for the ones that don't, you've got a statistic to them. There's a ranking. You see who's actually getting better. And now as a team, that's the culture behind this. Before, with video surveillance, it's always been Big Brother because no one's ever had the time to review the footage. So we look at our phones and we see what happens, and we coach while we're in the game, and it disengage, hey, why'd you do that? You should have been over there, right? Because we think our managers are thinking, well, I'm managing, right? That's not how it should happen. It should happen after the game. When you're in a meeting, talk about it. Otherwise, you're going to get people off their game. They become disengaged. Big Brother steps in, and now that's when the turnover comes, and they're like, you know what? I got this job so easy. I'll go get another job. and they just walk right out the door. They never come back. When you can turn that into a world-class coaching experience of praising and training, you've turned that revolving door that we've had this issue for decades. You've shut that. And now that's how you retain the best, but you also attract the best. Who's not going to say, hey, you got to come work for my restaurant. These guys are amazing. I'm making more money than ever. These guys are training me. They praise me. They thank me. You should work for them. Now people want to work for you. Now you don't have to worry about going through and scrummaging through these resumes and being like, we just got to get somebody in here.
Yeah, that was my experience. I mean, just the buzz on the street of that's a great place to work. I didn't have to look for people. They just came in all the time. And then we had very few openings because people never left. It was, one of those situations. Everyone wishes they had that situation.
Did you even know how lucky you were at that point?
Well, yeah, I mean, I absolutely did, because when this goes back 25 years when I first started, my very first restaurant, and I had that problem of finding and keeping a great staff until I developed the recognition, the rewards, and the daily training. And we built what I call the culture of hospitality, family, and fun, where it was all about hospitality. That's that key word. They say hospitality is absent when something happens to you, and hospitality is present when something happens for you. And that's the basis of the approach to dealing with each and every customer. And then the family part is where the staff feel like family. Then they're treating the customers with such great experiences that now the customers feel like family, and everybody's having fun. And that was, sort of our mission statement. That was the key to our success right there, and the daily training.
Yeah. I remember when I grew up, my favorite restaurant was Red Fideli's. And you'd walk in, this old Italian joint, right? I mean, just fantastic pictures of Sinatra and everyone on the wall and everything. And, the servers were there. But that's what we remember, right? Like, that's what we come back, because they know your name, right? I mean, right from the get-go, it's like the atmosphere is killer. The service is amazing and everything. So we have all of these big, franchises that want that feeling, but we get so big, and that's what gets lost at times, because we don't have the owner that's there, helping these, really being there for the employees. And so that feeling of that family, that sometimes is what gets lost. And what Hoptix, the focus is to make an impact, to bring that feeling back, so that, it's about the human experience. With Hoptix, we start to look at the employees, give them a better experience, give the customers a better experience. We're taking our time to go out there. You've heard it a million times probably. Casual dining is a 60-minute solution to a 30-minute problem. I mean, it's crazy. I can't even go to places for lunch because I'm like, I'll never get out of there. But we help the customers out to have a better experience. We help the operators out to have a better experience because they've got a better company. And then in the end, aren't we helping the whole community out by really providing a better experience and developing a better workforce and of people with accountability that understand the importance of service and being hospitable. I mean, it's a great ecosystem. It's a new ecosystem, Roger, that we've seen needs to be created in this industry. Nothing's changed. Nothing has revolutionized. Nothing has disrupted this industry for decades in this area. And that's where Hoptix comes in. We're here to disrupt this. We're here to really revolutionize the way that we provide an experience in hospitality.
I totally get it. I mean, disruption is what it's all about. And that's a competitive advantage because, the guy down the street isn't disrupting his business the way they should be and impacting the customer experience, right?
Danny Meyer, I'm going to get the quote wrong. I had it down there, but, I mean, it's all about how you talked about, it's all about how you make people feel that will bring them back. It's that simple, but it's that hard.
Well,
right?
My word
we get the concept. Go ahead.
My word for that is affinity. You know, what your goal is every day is to build affinity with your customer where they develop such a strong sense of belonging and loyalty because of the way you make them feel that they have to be there. They have to tell other people, this is my place because it makes, you know, it's an escape from my everyday reality, but that's the place I go to. And that affinity is this magic formula. If you could just figure out all the key elements that develop that with each and every customer, there's nothing more powerful than that. It's unstoppable force if you can harness it.
It's you know, what happens, if I come and visit you and I say, and this doesn't work so well with people who are in the restaurant industry, but if I come and visit you, how many restaurants, obviously we're going to go to a restaurant, someplace social, right? I mean, the restaurant, why this is so passionate for us. This is a quintessential form of the human experience. Breaking bread with somebody. I mean, this is what life is all about. You share stories. How many experiences come from surrounding yourself at a restaurant or some social gathering? I mean, this is it. This is where we have like extreme amounts of fun. So when I come and visit, how many locations are you thinking of right off the bat that we would go to?
It's unlimited.
Unlimited. Most people, unlike you, would say 2 to 5. That's their rotation, right? They have an actual rotation out there that is like 2 to 5 restaurants. The reason is what you just talked about is the consistency. If they're going to bring somebody to some place, they want to know when they go in there, they're going to get the same experience, which is a 5-star experience every single time. And so what we've seen is that you can be one of 2. Actually, one of 3. The third is nobody ever goes to it. But you can be the one that people have in their rotation, or you can be the one that people go to when they get sick of their rotation. The one where you're in the rotation is where you have the loyalty and you have the customers coming back. That's where the profitability comes in. Now, what's happening is they're like, okay, you know, we have customers, but are they really coming back for more and more and more? That's where measuring what the experience is inside of the business really comes in handy. All that 96% of those people that are having a bad experience that will never tell you and never come back or lower their frequency, we are now finding those people. I mean, you know, we're finding things that people aren't even looking at. I had a fast food company. There was a family of 6 that walked through the door. Staff was in the back. Nobody waited on them. It took 67 seconds. And a family of 6 walked out. An employee was actually outside, held the door for them. they came out, got into their van, and they took off. I mean, this is the stuff that's happening. And this is where video comes in to be able to see how, why, and who. And that's where the numbers really show. Okay. It's a great concept. It just hasn't happened before.
This happens far too often. I mean, I was at a restaurant in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, seaside town on the coast of New Hampshire, about 2 weeks ago. I think it was Father's Day. And we walked into a restaurant right on the busy waterfront. There was no host to greet us. And you stand there at the podium and there's no sign that says seat yourself, and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. And it's like, where are they? You know, and that is the first impression you have of the restaurant before anything else happens. And, you know, there are hundreds of experiences I could tell you like that across the restaurant with different staff members at different stages of the meal. I mean, this happens every day in restaurants across America. It's crazy.
It's happening. It's happening everywhere. We all need this. I got to say, though, it's not the restaurant's fault. There hasn't been a tool to use. I mean, before power tools existed, you built a house with hands, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, are you kidding me? I can cut wood with a power saw? Like, oh my God, like efficiency is going to be better. Like our performance is going to be better. There hasn't been anything to do it. So, you know, let me get this right. The industry has done what it's been able to do at this point. We've connected as many dots as we could, and we're running our businesses as best as we can. That loop we thought was closed. But what we realized at Hoptix is It's not closed. Video surveillance before has always been used as a middle of the page management, right? Like cost and theft. We now use it as a sales tool. We look at speeds of service, qualities of service. We look at, how we can retain customers and retain employees, right? I mean, like we've tried to manually track what we're doing and manually track the experience. But what happens when we manually track it? There's errors, right, Roger? And then when you have multiple locations, now we're being ranked. I might as well manipulate this a little bit. Like that stuff is happening. And so, we talked about the mystery shoppers. So instead of that, we're looking at, hundreds of more events, right? Really deep diving and getting into it. And instead of having to monitor this ourselves, which was completely time consuming, we now do the monitoring for the restaurants, which makes everybody happier and saves so much time. Those are the big differences. Those were the barriers that we looked at, and also we talked about the Big Brother approach to video, where we've changed that because of praise to now be a world-class coaching environment. Those are the areas that were the barriers that we looked at, that we've created a solution for. And that's where this tool now can really be used to have these behavioral trends that are really designed now to create like the highest efficiency teams that are producing the best experiences. Isn't that what we're looking for?
Absolutely. It's foundational and critical to your future success.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, we're not comparing the experience we have at another restaurant when we go to another restaurant. We're comparing it to like the best experience we've ever had ever. Right? Like we're so experience-based as a culture these days in the US. And so when I saw that we had no way of measuring this, and for 15 years with Omni, I'm looking at this and we're selling these systems and people they're saying the same thing over and over again. And then when we get done with it, the issue is that they basically paid 4 times the amount. And now they have a glorified security system. They just didn't get the idea of using it on a proactive basis, some of them, but they also just didn't have the time. And so we took all of that away. We do it. Also very well trained with this. We know what we're doing. We're really good at what we do. And at this point with, my second company, it's more truly about making a big impact in an industry that I just absolutely adore.
So it sounds to me like you're focused on hospitality and restaurants, but I see this technology being applicable to so many different industries. Do you have goals to expand to different industries now? We
do. That's in the future.
Yeah,
it's a couple phases out. Right now we're gonna really make a mark in this industry. There's one other company out there that does kind of what we do. On a small scale, it's essentially mystery shopping with video. Same amount of data, but I always throw that out there because there really isn't a company that does what Hoptix does. And I throw that out there because they've got 43,000 locations that they do this video for. And I say that because that's the need that people have wanted. They still want to use video to try to do these things, but the focus of this and other companies is more, cost and theft. There's nothing on the positive reinforcement side, nothing about building, nothing about speeds of service and focusing on that. So we've seen that that's a huge competitive advantage that we have right now. With Hoptix, we just want to have the conversation with those people that have had these issues for a number of years, talk about how the system works. Hopefully through this show, they get a really good understanding of how it works. and what happens. It's a very simple concept. It's just a matter of us supplying the technology and the data. We really have onboarded the managers well. One of the nice things is it's extremely easy to implement too. I mean, we're up and running within 2 business days, outside of peak hours. You're seeing results within 90 days. I mean, anybody that wants to use the system, we've got a quick online tutorial, and in less than an hour, I mean, they're up and running and using this thing. It's like 1/10 of the time it takes to implement a point of sale system and get somebody up and running on that. And we're just getting some really, really great feedback on it.
So you got a super fast onboarding process. Let's talk about technical support and how often that's needed and if it can all happen remotely.
It all happens remotely. Everything is happening remotely. I mean, when we go out there, we look at this and we're thinking, how, every time we look at this, I've been focused on automation and, once again, how do we simplify our lives? How do we create a better experience? How do we do more with less? I've been doing that with Omni Security for years. And so when we built this company, it was founded on how do we take any sort of issue or any sort of effort away and minimize that. So, through this, it's, number one, we have to make sure that we are aligned with the concept on why we're doing this. Because video, as I said, has always been used for Big Brother. And when we talk to managers, you got to see their eyes light up. Like, number one, they're a little confused. They're like, wait a minute. Are you sure? Like, what is this all about? And but then we go through, and because we do almost everything for them, and because most managers are able to get on YouTube, that's essentially what this system almost is like. It's a little thumbnail. They get on there, they look at it, and then we give them a dashboard to fill in all of their information on a daily basis, which keeps track of everything that you can filter and sort through and everything. I mean, we even send reminders if by some chance, let's face it, this is new. We're asking a manager to do something new. Sometimes they need a little coaching, right?
Definitely.
So we have parameters set in place to make sure that we're giving a little push, right? I would like to say a little pull, I should say, instead of a push. But that's just making sure, like, hey, listen, we get it. We know it's new. You may miss a day. That's fine. But we're there to assist. So the onboarding has been going really well. The companies that succeed the best are the ones that embrace it. If your will to change is not stronger than your will to stay the same, there's really nothing we can do for that customer. All right. For those customers that want to make an impact, those are the ones that we want to talk to. For those customers that know that they can increase their profitability, those are the ones that we're going to talk to. And so we see that there are those customers that want to be the front runners and they want to jump ahead. Those are the ones that are moving on the system right now. You have other customers that are like, okay, yeah, we'll sit back, and we'll be on, shortly. And then you have other customers. Yeah. And then you have other customers that are just like, they're just fine with what they're doing. And listen, that's great. We love that. Congratulations to them. But there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of these restaurants and these brands that are out there that really need something to revolutionize the way that they're doing business. Let's engage these guys. Let's keep them working. Enough is enough already.
Well said. I mean, inspiration is one thing, but it's all about execution, and you got to execute to compete and win.
Comes down to the numbers, right? It really does. I mean, yeah.
Well, that's fantastic, Ken. It's been amazing talking to you today, and what a revolutionary system we're talking about here. I want to share the URL. We're going to put this in the show notes, of course, as well as your social media handles so people can find you. But it's www.hoptix, which is HOPTIX, right? 720.com. Hoptix720.com. Ken, it's been great talking to you. Thanks so much for being on the show.
You're the best, Roger. Thank you. Thank you also for everything that you do for the industry. I mean, I really, really appreciate it. And I think so many others do as well. Anything that we can get more on the same page, align, and really boost us up continually, I have a lot of admiration for. So thank you.
No, thank you. And I'm really appreciative of Daria for contacting me because, again, I am blown away. This is a really fantastic piece of technology. And I think we've got some future collaborative ideas that we're going to start talking about as well. So we'll be in touch. And it's great meeting you, Ken. Thanks very much for being on the show.
Sounds good, Roger. Thank you.
Guys, I'm so glad you listened to this episode. You know, technology keeps moving forward and companies keep coming up with these really unique and innovative solutions to the challenges that you're having in your restaurant. Ken from Hoptix 720 is no exception. Whether you're old school or new school or you use a lot of technology or you don't, it's really important to systemize your restaurant. Now, I know a lot of you out there have challenges and pain points that you just need solutions to, but maybe you don't know where to begin or you just don't think you have the time. Well, I want to tell you all about the Restaurant RockStars Academy. We have 3 levels of membership that tackle some of the most pressing challenges in restaurants today. 1, your critical numbers or your finances. Whether you hate finances or you hate math or you're just uncomfortable with the numbers, we have a level of membership that teaches you all about how to take inventory, how to calculate your food, beverage, and labor costs, how to stay on the right side of your daily break even, which means you're making a profit every single day. All these things are all in one simple system. Also included is a profit maximizer video that gives you 3 immediately actionable ideas to increase profits in your restaurant. The second level of membership, we call it the silver level, introduces a powerful staff training system that not only trains staff in hospitality and service, but most importantly in salesmanship, because sales are the lifeblood of your business. It's going to train your order takers, your staff on the floor, how to sell and how to give your customers great customer service experiences. It's also something that's going to help you build your dream team because it lowers turnover in your restaurant. And then finally, the platinum level of membership is for anyone starting their very first restaurant, and it shows you step by step everything you need to know to open the doors to your first restaurant. But it's also for veteran operators that are just spinning their wheels, wondering why their bank account isn't growing, and it really helps you dial in your systems to help you maximize your profits through the staff training piece I talked about, the financial piece, and it also adds marketing firepower and efficiencies. So check it all out at restaurantrockstars.com. If you like what you're hearing, please leave us a review on iTunes. That will help other owners and managers find us. And if you have an idea for an episode that you'd really like me to cover, drop me a line, ROGER at restaurantrockstars.com. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant RockStars Podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.